Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you might happen to be. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about nerd news that dropped in the past week since our last Nerd Week Live show. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber. I am first-person shooter on Facebook as a cosplay photographer, which, I got to do this past weekend for the first time in 18 months. And Burley underscore adopter on Twitter and a couple of other places, mostly as a cosplay or as a tech journalist, cosplay journalist. I'm sure they're out there. And joining me tonight is my bearded brother, my bald bearded brother, Greg. Introduce yourself.
Evening, everybody. Greg Snyder here, aka Wonder Llama. I can actually say cosplay and photography this weekend since I did both at. I was about to say Anime Boston. Wow. It hasn't been that long at Fan Expo Boston. Roddy and I got to break out the cameras and shoot at a convention. I also threw on my Hagrid costume and ran around and took funny photos and entertained children and had a lot of fun. You can find me online. Look for Wonder Llama. You're bound to find me. If it's that other guy, just say hi anyway. He's a nice guy. Yeah, there is this in a weird bit of the world is very small. The person who has the @Wonder Llama on Instagram has a cat that looks identical to my cat.
Wow.
So there you go. Fascinating tidbit.
There you go. Most of the people who have anything remotely like first-person shooter are, of course, game addicts. So.
Mm-hmm.
Creeper King, welcome to the show. And I believe you're the only one in the chat right now. So feel free to jump in and talk about any of the topics we're going to be discussing tonight. It's not a super deep roster of topics. I'll have to say that. This is a pretty quiet week. Labor Day weekend, I guess news doesn't happen or something. Or at least not really big news. Although there are some really big ones, and we're going to start off with a really big one that is a really downer, a real big bummer. And that is yesterday, the actor Michael Kenneth Williams, also often credited as Michael K. Williams, passed away at the age of 54. Luminous, welcome to the show. Under what apparently by an awful lot of reports from people like the New York Post and Daily News and so on who have actual crime reporters still, seems to be potentially related to a drug overdose. So drug paraphernalia was found around his body. And that multiple reports citing, police sources saying that. Nobody has made any official statement like that, including the police. This really hit me. Michael K. Williams has been one of my absolute favorite actors ever since I saw him in The Wire. Omar is probably one of the most amazing characters ever written. And certainly Michael K. Williams just killed it. But that picture that was just up there is him from the absolutely wonderful, I don't know if wonderful is the right word, incredible, all of those words, Lovecraft Country.
Exceptional.
Exceptional. Thank you. Recent HBO adaptation of the book of the same name. He plays Montrose Freeman, who is technically, he is the father of the main character. Although you ultimately find out, well, I don't want to spoil anything for you. Go watch the series.
Watch the series.
But Michael K. Williams is an out black gay man. Has been pretty much his entire career. And one of his last roles there in Lovecraft Country, he played a deeply closeted and therefore deeply troubled gay black man, trying to deal with that in a life that spans from the start of the 20th century into when the books and the series takes place into the 1950s. Brutal performance, fantastic performance. And I thought that was kind of his, his nerd cred with maybe a few other things. So apparently, since I never watched the remake of RoboCop, I didn't realize he was a gender-flipped version of RoboCop's original partner.
Hmm.
So a huge role in that
Wow.
movie. This is him in that movie.
Okay, I didn't know
Um,
that.
and apparently, he was a voice actor of a character in the original Battlefield game. It was so popular that they brought him back for Battlefield 2042 and made a skin that you can get for the character that is literally based on Michael K. Williams. If you zoom in on that, it's got the scar, the same beard, everything. So I was wrong. He's done quite a bit of nerd stuff in his.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I thought you were finished. Sorry.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm scrolling through his IMDb page. A lot of small, sort of nerd-oriented stuff. He did an episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force,
Yes.
which, right there. And he was in Assassin's Creed, the live-action movie, which I did not remember at all.
Same here.
Um,
I've managed to
I
put that movie out of my
actually
mind.
I think so. I definitely the first thing I remember him in is Boardwalk Empire, which I really really liked. Um, he was a great character, similar, trying to make it as a black man in a very racist part of the country in a very racist time in the country. He did a great job of walking that fine line. Um, but the thing, it was a very small role, but the thing I think I remember him best in is Community. He played one of the professors in like 3 or 4 episodes,
Yep.
playing very much to character, but completely against character in a lot of ways. It was for something that's effectively a celebrity cameo on a TV show, on a sitcom. It was really well done.
Yeah. Uh, Almost everything that I've seen him in, he stands out in. Even again, it's a small role, but in the amazing first directorial effort by Ben Affleck, Gone Baby Gone, he
Mm.
plays an officer who finally gives Patrick, I can't remember the character's last name, finally gives the main character a little bit of an insight into what these police officers that are also investigating the disappearance of this baby are really like. And it's a short little bit, but it's really really well done. He does a fantastic job. I didn't know this in The Incredible Hulk. He is credited as Harlem Bystander.
Just
So,
saw that.
and mind you, this is right at the end of his run as Omar on The Wire. I mean, he was nominated for stuff. He was an absolute darling of the people who appreciate something as incredibly well written and done as The Wire. And then he's got this role as a bystander in the Incredible Hulk.
That smacks of like he met Ang Lee at a party, and he was like, yeah, don't write me into the movie. I just want to like have a little, I just want my head to pop up somewhere.
Yeah, he was a
Who knows?
thief, one of a group of thieves, I believe, in the movie The Road. So yeah, I would say go watch that, but don't
Maybe
if
wait
you're
till
feeling it all sad.
2024, 2025. Maybe things are a little better in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Don't watch that while most of the world is still shut down from a pandemic. Um,
You know
and
what? You know what else he was in that I'm personally a fan of, and I don't know if you or any of our listeners or viewers have seen before. F is for Family, the Netflix animated series. Um,
I haven't seen it. I hear it's
it's
hilarious.
it's Bill Burr, so your mileage will vary. I
Yeah.
won't say may vary; it will vary. I personally do not like Bill Burr, the person. I don't like his stand-up very much, but the TV show is very funny, and it's like a lot of good ones. The first handful of episodes were very centered on him, and they grew into a much broader, more sort of interesting ensemble. Um, and yeah, he was one of the characters in there. He always did a great job.
I completely forgot about this. It's just reminding me. He was just a little bit in Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. He was one of the many, many actors that got to play Richard Sackler.
Yep.
When basically they're all just doing various takes on Sackler's repeated testimony about the opioid crisis. Don't know. Don't know. I don't know. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so many wonderful actors that Oliver got to do this, and Michael K. Williams is one of them. Yeah, so it's a huge loss. Obviously, whatever he was struggling with, and he has been upfront in interviews, recent interviews, about his addiction problems. So whatever he was dealing with, I'm, it's absolutely criminal that he didn't get the help he needed. Whether he sought it or not, I don't know. And it's a great loss, I think, a huge loss. So, moving on to a much better topic. That is Annie Wersching. Annie Wersching is, or this news is a little bit. So Annie Wersching has been cast to play the Borg Queen in season 2 of Star Trek Picard. So the news is A, they've cast it, and B, the Borg Queen will be in season 2 of Star Trek Picard. In a role large enough to cast, a fairly well-known actress. Let's see, what do they credit? So, Runaways, if you're a nerd, that's the one that you're going to remember her for, probably the most. She was Leslie Dean, the Carolina's mother, the head of the cult that. All right, that take way too long to explain. Go watch it. It's a good show on Hulu. But she was also, apparently, I had no idea about this. She was the original voice of Tess in Last of Us. So quite a lot of nerd stuff in her background. The series Extant, which didn't really go for very long. A lot of stuff in the background. So Annie Wersching is going to be playing the Borg Queen. I think it's a good casting. I think she's got a look that works for it. And just another thing to make me look forward to Picard. For anybody. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm all for casting the Borg Queen. I saw the first few episodes of that and then kind of, I guess, didn't grab me. I've never been a huge Star Trek guy. But I do like that they're actually bringing in the Borg Queen, because that was one of the more, from the movies anyway, she was one of the more fascinating characters.
Yeah, and the fact that this the big promotion for this upcoming season is the appearance of Q. So they're bringing back two of the biggest hitters when it comes to, well, antagonists. I mean, Q isn't really a villain. In the Star Trek Next Generation canon, the Borg Queen and Q in one series. So,
yep,
it's gonna be exciting, folks.
As long as it doesn't turn into a Spider-Man 3 situation.
Too many villains to be treated properly.
I mean, that said, now I really want to see Patrick Stewart doing goth Captain Picard and getting all emo walking down the street, because
I gotta say, the one episode where he pretends to be a sort of French criminal, contraband dealer. It's not drugs. Kind of cringy, I have to admit. He's always amazing. Luminous. I'm looking forward to season 2 of Picard. Should I catch up on Star Trek Discovery first? I only watched season 1. No, not really. There, technically Discovery, well, now it's way in the future, so it doesn't matter whatsoever. Discovery is its own thing now. It's so far in the future that it will have absolutely no effect or connection to anything that happened in the Star Trek canon. But technically it started out as pre-original series, just a few years before, actually, the start of the original series. So there would have been no real overlap between Discovery stories and the Next Generation. And in fact, they had to send Discovery's tales far into the future to eliminate the possibility that some of the stuff that they developed and talked about, you'd have to sit there and go, well, why wasn't that in the original series? And it's because they're not, in this timeline anymore, or they're jumped way ahead of this timeline. Anyway, and that's a rabbit hole. You can go way down. Having said that, Discovery series season 2 is pretty awesome, and lays the groundwork for the upcoming. I can't remember the name of it. The Christopher Pike Enterprise series. With Anson Mount, who was absolutely astounding as Pike in the second season of Discovery. You can actually 100% understand why they gave him his own series.
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds. Thank you. Yeah. So you don't have to. But you did watch season 1 of Picard, I'm assuming, and enjoyed it like I did. All right. Our next topic is about a show I completely forgot was happening. This is a list of some of the cast members that will be in some of the episodes of Guillermo del Toro's upcoming anthology, horror-ish anthology series on Netflix. Anthology series meaning it's going to be like Black Mirror. Each episode will be a standalone piece of work. We have, from left to right, Essie Davis from Babadook, Luke Roberts, I believe from Ransom, Andrew Lincoln, of course, Walking Dead, F. Murray Abraham from Everything.
Everything.
And Many Things Awesome. My personal favorite is Sneakers. You remember that? Robert Redford, the late River Phoenix, former spycraft people doing industrial hacking. Really cool. And Glenn Turman, who I don't have a listing of right up here on what Glenn Turman is most known for. Not pictured in here, but also already confirmed.
Oh.
Tim Blake Nelson, Crispin Effin Glover, Ben Barnes, Shadow and Bone, or the Punisher, or Peter Weller, the original RoboCop, throwing it back to the RoboCops.
Wow.
And some of the best things about this are the people behind the scenes. And I don't want to go, I'm not going to go through all of these, but some of them. The Essie Davis, Andrew Lincoln, and an actress, Hannah Galway episode is going to be written and directed by Jennifer Kent, who did the movie The Babadook. And it's based on a Guillermo del Toro story.
Interesting.
The F. Murray Abraham, Glenn Turman. Oh, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That's his most recent thing. Luke Roberts' story is written by David S. Goyer, comic book movie titan who wrote The Dark Knight, among many, many other things. Tim Blake Nelson will be in a episode with a bunch of other people, written by Regina Corrado, who wrote episodes of Deadwood and The Strain, based on a Guillermo del Toro story, and it will be directed by Guillermo Navarro, who directed episodes of Godfather of Harlem and Narcos. But this, Crispin Glover, Ben Barnes, together in one episode, written by Lee Patterson, who wrote Curve. It's based on a Lovecraft story, and it's going to be directed by Keith Thomas, who is doing the upcoming Firestarter remake of the Stephen King book. And that's just
a lot of there.
There's a lot of there. Yeah, that's a lot of power talent.
Yeah, no kidding.
And as Greg said before at the beginning of the show, with Del Toro really on the reins on this, I'm looking forward to this a lot.
Yeah, big time. I mean, we were talking before we started, and this type of anthology kind of lends itself to comparisons to Twilight Zone. And there's a distinct possibility that that's a pretty good analogy, but kind of the log line that they put in the article, it says it's meant to challenge our traditional notions of horror, from macabre to magical, gothic to grotesque, or classically creepy, 8 sinister tales, including 2 original works from Del Toro, et cetera, et cetera. So I love the notion that this is going to be, anything from body horror to jump scare stuff to mind F type of, what the hell's going on, with some fantastic actors, incredible writers. It's where's the premiere date? Did they announce the premiere date?
So it's Netflix, so they usually don't, but let me scroll back and see if I see.
Yeah, I'm looking through here.
No, it says production has begun.
Oh, production is filming. Okay.
Yeah.
So it'll be, let's see. So IMDb just says 2022. So sometime next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really funny. I when you said Effie Davis, it took me a minute because the image that you had up with much longer hair, I actually know her from the Phryne Fisher, Miss Fisher mysteries.
Oh.
My wife was a big fan of that and sucked me into it. It's very lighthearted, female detective, fish out of water kind of stories set in what for most Americans is a rather different setting. It's Australia right after World War I.
Cool.
So it's a cool setting. It's your typical kind of weekly murder mystery whodunit.
So Miss Marple meets Gallipoli.
If Poirot was a flapper and carried a very large revolver.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
I think you may have just sold me on that.
Yeah.
Oh, I completely forgot.
It's
just a second.
definitely fluffy, but it's fun.
Cool. I forgot this, and this is the one that I have to see. Peter Weller will star in an episode directed by Panos Cosmatos, who directed Mandy, the bat F insane movie with Nicolas Cage. So Peter Weller being directed by the guy who made Mandy, I'm there.
Bring it.
And he's writing it along with somebody, Aaron Stewart on. So, yeah. All right. So, yeah, sometime in 2022. Boy, I'm looking forward to this. Time to move on. So today, actually, Marvel dropped this announcement. These are new titles of books that will be coming out in the next, I guess, 6 months, you could say. Or starting in December and into February, so crammed into 3 months. Which they are calling tentpole titles. These are supposed to be, some really big titles. I'm not going to go over all 8 of them. You can look at it's cool that they're doing a Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur comic. Yay. Yeah. But if you read through their descriptions, and I'll do it with just a couple of these, it is 100% clear that these are very influenced by the MCU. So the first one up there coming in December, Devil's Reign. It's basically a story. It's a crossover event. Kingpin is now the mayor of New York, and he knows the secrets of an awful lot of the superheroes in New York. And so he starts, he establishes a rule or creates a law or whatever in which they are, that superheroes are banned in New York, and then he starts releasing all of their information. Ultimately, they come in conflict with, Fisk is now in control of the Thunderbolts. And that is probably the biggest theory going out there about all of the bad guys in Phase 4. Is it seems to potentially be leading to a Thunderbolts. And this is, again, maybe that's a pretty tenuous connection. So let's get this. Avengers Forever. It's being written by Jason Aaron, so I'm in. Whatever. Also coming out in December. The future of the Marvel... no, that's the other one. Marvel Comics Avengers Forever pulls together archaeologist Tony Stark, a.k.a. the Invincible Ant-Man, and Avengers from across the multiverse to bring order to timelines where hope is a 4-letter word. The series redefined the Avengers as the multiverse's mightiest heroes. That's MCU branding right there, folks. 100%. And then the last one I'll talk about is this. It's called Timeless. It's coming out also in December. The future of the Marvel Universe is here. Timeless is where it all begins. When a threatening new timeline emerges, Kang the Conqueror must fight his way through the coming year to protect the main 616 timeline he's worked centuries to solidify as his own. So, folks, that isn't really Kang's story until the MCU stuff. Jed MacKay, Kev Walker, Mark Bagley, big names. So there are 2 writers and 2 artists associated with it. Mark Bagley is one of the artists. The other is Joe Bennett, and we're going to get to a Joe Bennett story very shortly. But then there's She-Hulk. Actually, I'll do that one too. She-Hulk tries to put her rage-filled days behind her and return to practicing law in defense of the innocent. It's the She-Hulk series. You know, this is so deeply connected to the MCU. It's really kind of surprising in that they also have a Fantastic Four series coming out in February. It looks like late January, early February. Which, is that an indication that there's a Fantastic Four announcement coming from the MCU? I'm hoping.
It would seem probable.
Well, yeah, that's kind of stupid. Yes, there will be a Fantastic Four announcement coming from the MCU. Eventually. That's a pretty stupid statement on my part. Does it mean it's happening sooner rather than later?
Does it have anything to do with who owns rights and what movies might happen, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, they own the rights to all of this now. They bought everybody.
Yeah, sorry, that's true. I keep forgetting about that whole Fox thing.
Yeah. So with the exception of the Spider-Man stuff, they own pretty much everything. So yeah, this will be very interesting to see what these comics tell us about the MCU, in addition to whether they're really good comics. And
yeah,
frankly,
I mean, that was... Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were finished.
I was just going to say, Avengers Forever, they've done this idea of, they did it with the X-Men in one particular book that only lasted a year. But I always love those stories. The wild... That was the one that brought us the alternate universe version of Logan, where he is a gay lover for Hercules. And, bam, that was a great story.
I missed that one.
Oh, my God, you've got to go back and find it. I can't even remember the name of the... Exiles, I think was the name of the title.
Does Hercules just keep him around so he can just skin the lions?
It is, I mean, if you think about Hercules' costume in the current...
oh my goodness.
Or even in the old run, it is the leather bear daddy matchup that everybody who's a fan of any of that kind of stuff was looking for. It's hilarious and wonderful.
I may need to go find that.
It's worth
kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that comes to mind is kind of exactly what you alluded to about how closely this ties into the MCU. I mean, this is sort of the definition of vertical marketing.
Right.
Not to get into boring marketing crap, but it sort of begs the question, how much of this is all going to be very carefully workshopped and scripted out, and here's your framework so that it fits into and slots into phase 4, et cetera, as far as the movies go, hopefully not to the detriment of making good comic books. Yep. Because when you're handed the last thing most writers and artists want is you have to write to this. You have to shoehorn in between this event and this event and this timeline and this timeline. It doesn't tend to do great things to people's creativity.
Right. So now that Feige is in charge of everything Marvel, I'm pretty sure there's going to be deeper connections, but I think more logical ones that will have appropriate payoffs. Like, back 10 years ago, I guess, when it was pretty clear that there wasn't any chance, at least immediately, that Marvel was ever going to get their hands on the X-Men stuff until they actually bought Fox. The comics essentially tried to wipe them out and replace them with the Inhumans as the most important thing, and that gave us the worst worst comic book TV series ever made, the Inhumans. And that was just a nightmare, and that was because Marvel Comics was still in the hands of was it Perlmutter, and Marvel Cinematic Universe was now in the hands of Feige, and those two things just didn't mesh. Feige's got it all now. So, and it seems like he's pretty good about making sure that creatives don't get stomped on.
True. For sure.
Fingers crossed. Anyway, all of these 8 start in December, and the last one premieres in looks like some point in February of this coming year. And that's the last one is the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur title. So I'm looking forward to reading some of these. Probably most of them. So I had alluded to Joe Bennett, the artist, and the news is that Bennett, who is the artist on the incredibly well-received Immortal Hulk, well, it's not Bennett so much. The writer of that, Al Ewing, has said that he will not work with Bennett again because of a, quote, reprehensible illustration that Bennett made. Turns out apparently Bennett is, and I don't know whether this is actually his name or if it's a nom de plume, is Brazilian. And he made a cartoon, an editorial cartoon, that essentially celebrates President Bolsonaro slaughtering all of his political opponents. Clearly represented by, the caricatures are, okay, that's, political opponent A, that's political opponent B. And they say a lot of them are running around, the caricatures have like buck teeth and big noses. It sounds pretty freaking anti-Semitic. The fact that Joe Bennett is going to be on that was the Avengers Forever? What was the one that Bennett was working on?
I don't remember.
I have to go back to Bennett was working on Timeless, the Kang the Conqueror one. I probably won't be picking that up.
Fair enough.
Which is a crying shame, because look at this. The reason Bennett was picked, Immortal Hulk is kind of a horror-themed Hulk story, and look at that line work. That really calls back to the old, Wally Wood, pen and ink, fantastic work, back in the 50s and 60s. He's a great artist. Apparently a really crappy human being. So
super.
Yeah, super. And apparently Al Ewing is apologizing for working with Bennett to the extent that he actually made a donation to Rainbow Railroad and the Rainforest Trust, and then, in multiple thousands of dollars, and then posted the receipt for his donation on his Twitter feed.
Yeah.
So crappy people doing crappy stuff.
Yeah, that's that pretty much sums it up.
Yep.
I'm just thinking about this. I've been to Brazil several times. It's Bolsonaro, I think, in a lot of ways. All right, we don't want to get off on a political screed here, so I'll table that for another one.
Yeah. You can just say it right off the bat. He is a Trumpian scum of the lowest order.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways he's worse than Trump. I think he's smarter, and he's got far fewer controls. There's far fewer mechanisms to keep him in control, to the point where I actually just read that they're already mounting a fake elections, rigged elections, because he's projected to lose badly to Lula da Silva, who was the ex-president.
Who is one of the people in the cartoon. And previous president too, right? Lula da
He was the recent ex-president, yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to Nerd Caliber's coverage of Brazilian presidential politics.
Exactly. Everything you wanted to know and didn't know you wanted to know. All right, moving on to something that's so much less crappy. And in fact, it's really just kind of inside baseball. But, premiere dates with COVID were obviously fluid as heck. And apparently they still are. But now it's about who's going to get the biggest bang for their movie theatrical release buck. And we've got two back-to-back stories about that. Ghostbusters Afterlife is going to be now premiering on November 19th, which it was supposed to be November 11th. And that is because apparently Top Gun Maverick, which was going to be on that date, has been rescheduled. So Sony put Ghostbusters Afterlife into that date because the weekend before Thanksgiving is apparently a big weekend.
That's one of the biggest weekends of the year.
Yeah. So I think every Ghostbusters fan is going to go see this. Every Stranger Things fan is going to go see this. Every Paul Rudd fan is going to go see this. If you're into Immortals. So I kind of think it didn't matter, but yeah, they're now putting it into the killer weekend.
So now that's kind of fascinating. It would be interesting enough just in and of itself if it moved it to that weekend. But the fact that it bumped the Top Gun sequel that lots of people have been clamoring for years and years. Obviously, Tom Cruise, huge box office draw. Not someone who will roll over on things like this normally. That would be fascinating, fly on the wall kind of speculation.
Well, except
as to how that happened.
Paramount pulled Top Gun to November 11th. That's why Sony moved Ghostbusters. Paramount made the first move. They took it off the biggest weekend.
There you go. So that must mean that it's not very good.
Luminous, speaking... I got to get this one in.
Yep.
Speaking of new movies, I'm sad I cannot stream Shang-Chi. I do not want to go to a theater. 100% with you there, man. I've already seen what are pretty much huge spoilers for the mid-credits scene, or the mid of the end credits, which, if true, is just absolutely freaking huge news. For the MCU movies going forward. And that was literally in the thumbnail card on a YouTube video. I mean, they said spoiler, and they show a picture. Like,
you need to give a second to look away before you put the spoiler up after your spoiler alert.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd be curious. I don't know if you've seen anything about when that's projected to come to Disney Plus. All of those things, especially in light of what happened with Scarlett Johansson, etc. I'm guessing they're being a little bit more cautious about how quickly they do things and how they structure that.
45-day guaranteed theatrical only.
That's right. I didn't remember seeing that.
So mid-October.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I feel about that at the moment either. It depends on the theater, it depends on the day. I mean, I think if you go to a Tuesday 11:30 show, it's going to be a fairly empty theater.
Yeah, I did see a post on Facebook from a Facebook friend who saw it in a drive-in. And I'm like, okay, I like that idea.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I'm going to have to go look up the old
looking at the Menden
drive-in.
Menden's just down the road.
10 minutes away from there now.
I'm pretty sure they're playing it. And now I'm really jealous.
8 p.m. on Saturday.
Oh, you scum.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Well,
I'm so jealous.
I guess I know what I'm doing Friday night.
There are no drive-ins on the North Shore of Massachusetts that I know of. There might be Um, yeah. So, but yeah, and so the reason this move is happening is, and we'll get into this in our next story, is because of just how incredibly successful Shang-Chi was. So our next story is about another movie that's coming up that got the date change, and that is Venom: Let There Be Carnage. That's obviously Carnage. Is moving from mid-October, October 15th, to October 1st. And this article in Deadline is speculating that is because of the insanely uh, good success, how insanely successful Shang-Chi was. Um, so Greg and I had a little question about this. When all the stories are about how incredibly $90 million in the first opening weekend, Labor Day. It's that's a big dollar. It's like, well, not for a Marvel movie, really. Well, as it turns out, I looked this up. That is a record for a Labor Day weekend opening ever.
And just because I just had that article up as well, it's a record for pandemic era, a single day pandemic era ticket sales.
Yep.
But I mean, given how much special effects there are in this, their budget had to have been a hell of a lot higher than $90 million. I mean, I don't think Marvel makes a movie like that for less than 100 and change these days.
Yeah.
And you usually, I don't remember what the old algorithm is. It's, whatever your budget is, add 35 to 50% for marketing, etc. So you have
in the movie industry, it's generally 100%.
Yeah. So if your film budget is 100 million, you need to make at least 2.25 to turn a profit.
Yeah. But remember, this is 90 million in the opening weekend alone.
Right.
And I know people who have already posted in Facebook. They've already seen it twice. It's getting insanely good reviews. It's frankly, that's the domestic market. The international market.
Yep, very true.
This could be Marvel's next $1 billion.
That would be something.
It would be wonderful, absolutely wonderful. An Asian-led movie in a predominantly Asian cast. Yeah, that would be fantastic. And I love the character. It kills me that I can't watch it on streaming. Luminous, I'm with you. Bought the very first issue and just
soon
loved it. So expect that to be the reason why you're seeing things, these days change dates. It's now no longer the fact that it doesn't look like anybody's going to get to the theater. It's now how much money can you make because people really are dying to get to the theater. I'm sorry. Excited to get to the theater.
Bad choice of words.
Yes, bad choice of words. To realize that as soon as it came out of my mouth.
So interestingly, I don't know whether... So I think I may have to take back what I said about maybe Paramount's got some questions about how well Top Gun will do. You're absolutely right. They pulled the trigger first and moved it. Pardon the gun analogy there. The gun pun.
Top Gun pun.
They moved it to Memorial Day weekend of 22, which is potentially a much bigger. Well, maybe not. Well, yeah, it was going to be the week before Thanksgiving. So yeah, interesting. I mean, that's usually a pretty big weekend as well. It's just not, the week before Christmas and the week before Thanksgiving are, from everything I've ever read, are typically the biggest money makers of the year.
Yeah. Memorial Day is huge. May 1st, or as close to May 1st, is huge because that's Marvel likes to drop things right around there. And the weekend before Independence Day is usually really big. So that's Carnage is October 1st now, and Ghostbusters Afterlife is November 19th, and Top Gun Maverick is all the way into the future. Expect more of this happening for big movies.
I'm actually kind of surprisingly interested in seeing the new Carnage. I mean, it was not a very good movie, but it was a very fun movie. It was dumb. Venom, yeah, the first Venom. It was silly. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. But to me, it was one of the most comic book of comic book movies, if that makes any sense. It hewed to that kind of bigger than life silliness that sometimes some franchise characters get into.
Yeah.
And it was big silly fun, especially if you go to a theater where you can have a couple of beers before you go in.
Yeah. Yeah, the way they characterized Venom and that silliness almost it reminds me more of like an Image Comics like the Max or something from way back when than the way Venom is normally portrayed. They rarely use Venom for comedy in the comic books.
True.
Um,
And I mean, I got to give much, if not most, of the credit to Tom Hardy.
yes.
Because I mean, any other character, any other actor would have been interesting, decent, pretty good. He made it. He made that character.
Literally chewing the scenery.
But
Thank you. And apparently the whole fish tank thing was his idea. It was an ad lib, on the spot. So yeah, Tom Hardy, whatever that accent was supposed to be, no idea, but all right. Our next topic is the first of our two trailers that are going to wrap up the show. If you haven't seen it, folks, there's a trailer out there for the upcoming Roland Emmerich sci-fi disaster movie Moonfall, with Halle Berry and Patrick Wilson and Michael Pena and Donald Sutherland, and it's an amazing cast. And boy, does it look stupid. So if you remember 2012, his last giant, world-ending disaster movie, that ends with such this ridiculous, space arcs. Spoiler alert for a movie that's I don't know how old. But it was kind of dumb fun, and it was great to see John Cusack doing a sort of an action-y role and so on. They are making this in this trailer try to look serious science fiction, and boy, does it just look stupid.
Little wide of the mark.
Yeah. And I'm not really sure. Do I want to watch a movie in which there is literally no way anybody can survive? And then have Roland Emmerich try to come up with a way, and you go, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, except it will not make sense. Yeah, maybe not.
So the only two possible ways out I can see are the aliens must have done something to us, or the whole thing was a dream.
Right.
There's just no other way out.
That's true. You could do a The Abyss ending. And
Let's do the Scooby-Doo ending.
The Scooby-Doo ending. I literally remember that in The Abyss as they're coming up. It's like, wait a minute, they're all just going to die.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of decompression, they're going to explode. I've pulled up fish from 300 feet where everything kind of bulges out.
Yep.
From miles down, those humans are going to go, and they address it. And granted, it's kind of a toss-off line. It's like, they clearly did something to us, but these are super advanced aliens.
I just love that. I just love that line read right there. The aliens must have done something to us. from one of the mechanics on board an undersea oil rig. Exactly. Great movie.
It is a great movie. Moonfall probably won't be.
Probably not. Yeah, it's Rodney and I were talking about this before. I don't know if anybody who's watching read the book Seven Eves by Neil Stephenson. Very similar premise. The moon explodes basically and starts crashing into the earth, and people have to figure out a way to not die. That, at least, while the book was a bit of a slog, was at least about sort of the sciencey elements of what would happen if the moon exploded and started falling to Earth. What do you call it? This just looks like there's no attempt to do that. It's just going to be all CGI moon murder
Of the entire planet. You know,
of the whole entire planet, one space shuttle at a time.
that thing hits, ain't nothing left, folks. There's going to be a a second asteroid belt between Venus and Mars. Yeah, so if we get passes to go see it, I might be the one to review it. Probably not. Other than that, I'm definitely waiting until that hits a streamer. However, this is
Maybe
going
not even
to.
then.
What's that?
Maybe not even then.
Maybe not even then.
You know, it's worth it, just as a very quick aside, because we were talking about this before we jumped on. Instead of seeing that movie, read up about something like the Yucatan crater impact. Why do I always blank on
Tunguska.
the one you brought up, the Tunguska event in the early 20th century. Absolutely fascinating to see what happens when very large, fast-moving interstellar objects slam into the Earth.
Yes. Go get the science, folks. Read the real stuff. Our final topic is another trailer. The trailer for Wheel of Time, the Amazon series, has finally dropped. And I gotta say, I'm backtracking my original complaint that, the design of it looks kind of like a high-end LARP. In the trailer, you get to see an awful lot of the magic effects that Moraine uses. You get to see this, which is, I had to look it up because I get the name wrong completely. Tar Valon, which is one of the sort of free city-states within the many countries that are in the books. It looks fantastic. The design looks great. All right, I'm back. I'm back on board, folks.
So you mean Minas Tirith?
Well, yeah, Minas Tirith without the cliff.
Yeah.
It doesn't have rings. That's a pretty organic-looking city. All right, come on.
I will say this. So I loved the books Once Upon a Time. I read the first 4 or 5. I couldn't go on anymore. It just got too much everything. But having just watched the trailer, the set design is eerily reminiscent of the book covers. Very specifically, like the book covers did a pretty good job, and some of the variant covers did a great job of of really capturing that kind of Tolkien-esque universe, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, whoa, that's just, wow. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's been a very long time since I've read them. I don't remember them super, super well. I just remember getting pissed off and not wanting to continue to go. But my recollection was that it was much more about the main character, whose name I can't even remember now. Whereas the the trailer really kind of amps up the importance of the Aes Sedai, and it seems like that they're given a lot more weight than the books had.
Yeah.
Which could make it interesting because, frankly, the whole Chosen One coming from humble beginnings in a agrarian town and discovering he's got the magic to save or destroy the world. I don't know how interesting that is. I mean, it's been done to death. But putting a different spin on it and, kind of putting the focus on a different group of, essential characters could be a cool twist or a cool direction, I should say.
Yeah. Lan is the name of the main character, played by Daniel Henney. So I haven't read the books. I do know somebody who is a huge Wheel of Time fan. And the Chosen One thing gets played with a lot in the later books. Apparently, in a little sort of Matrixy kind of thing, These chosen ones appear sort of spontaneously every couple of generations, or not even a couple of generations. Some of them are still living. That didn't really work out very well. And apparently that becomes an element of the books later on. And, so whether or not, Jordan was originally setting up this concept, by, not expressing that, he's playing around with the idea of the chosen one thing through the first 5 books. And then, because there's millions of books here. Well, not millions, but, I mean, there's more than a dozen books in this series. And so, he may have been playing a really long game with, this plot. Or he just lucked out and went, hey, I can put a twist on this. But yeah, it looks good. I'm looking forward to it. There's so much material to mine that, they can be doing this forever and ever. November 19th is when we get to see it. So if you're not in the theater watching Ghostbusters Afterlife, well, actually, I guess, yeah, it's an Amazon series, so you're not going to binge it. So you can then go watch the first episode. We did announce, cover the fact that they had already announced that there will be a season 2. Even though it hasn't premiered yet. Apparently, production has already started. That started in July for season 2. So, according to this article. So, yeah. Definitely looking forward to that, folks. And that wraps up our show. I don't have anything. Greg, anything on a could we please, could we not?
No, just the usual could we keep getting vaccinated and wearing masks when we need to, because it was nice to be able to go to Fan Expo Boston this past weekend and see folks I haven't seen in a long time. Rodney, first time you and I have actually been in the same room together in the better part of 2 years.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, for us it was 17 months because I went to pick up this chair.
True, but I put it outside the house.
That's true.
And retreated up the stairs.
Yes.
Because that was like the height of early days. So yeah, I mean, beating a dead horse. That's another poor choice of words. Beating the drum again and again. I really hope we don't get 4 or 5 weeks from now and find out New York Comic-Con's getting shut down because COVID stuff.
Right.
So
I'll do that. In fact, I'll just do that as a really quick could we please, and also as a way of appreciating the people that I ran across this weekend. Could we please be like the wonderful cosplayers and attendees and guests and pretty much everybody else at Fan Expo Boston who masked up with almost zero complaints. I heard 1 or 2 stories about 1 or 2 people in a many thousands upon thousands of attendees con. You all did a fantastic job. Thank you very much for doing that. And could we all please do that?
Please.
Luminous, how was Fan Expo Boston? I saw some photos of folks I've not seen in years. Makes me sad. In that regard, it was wonderful. Being able to see people, the ones that I know who are vaccinated and we were still both wearing masks, hugging people, that was fantastic. Taking pictures again of cosplayers was fantastic. I remembered how the lights worked. It was an important thing.
I give the Fan Expo organization a lot of credit for that. I mean, we work closely with them.
Yep.
But this isn't a plug for folks that we work with. It's a genuine, I did MegaCon a few weeks ago in Florida. Obviously, Florida and Mass have very different, let's say, takes on how COVID should be addressed. Didn't have, even in Orlando, wasn't terribly problematic. Most people were pretty good. Definitely heard through the grapevine there were some complaints about people who refused to wear masks, but I think it was dealt with well. But attendees were generally pretty good. I mean, Rodney and I both did a great deal of shooting over the weekend. I shot 4 red carpets. Rodney shot 1. I'm about 3/4 of the way done through the photos. Every single person has a mask on in every single photo.
Yeah. And you'll see, folks, in our galleries, and it's explained in my first post, which went up today. So the Friday and then the first Saturday combined gallery post. Very many cosplayers are not wearing masks, and we gave them the option that once they got onto our backdrop, which was more than 6 feet, it's about 10 feet away from me where I was shooting, they could take their mask off and either put it in a pocket, toss it aside, or set it on a chair that I had set over there. And then they had to obviously put the mask back on before moving around. And most people loved that option. Quite a few of them decided to keep the mask on because, one, it fit with their costume, or two, they didn't put makeup on underneath it. So, using it as a convenient. Or three, it was so tight that it was going to leave marks and so on. And that was fine too. That was great. That was their call. But all of those people walked into our room with masks and were really surprised when we offered them the opportunity, once they were distanced from us, to take the mask off for the photos. Again, thank you all, and could we all please be that attentive to mask wearing and so on. So that's it, folks. That's our show. Again, as always, please visit us on Patreon, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. We're looking for your support, of course. Just a couple of tiers, both of them pretty low dollar. Help us get to more cons, and more cons are coming up. We'll have a team at Kineticon this coming weekend, GraniteCon the weekend after that, and the weekend of GraniteCon, also Colossal Con East we'll have people at, and it's busy. And Thursday's Full Fat Spoiler Chat is the Hugh Jackman sci-fi movie Reminiscence, which is getting really good reviews. So definitely check us out if you have seen that and want to discuss it, or you don't mind spoilers. Next week is No Nerd Caliber, and that's going to be our favorite ninjas next Monday. That's because our Full Fat Spoiler Chat the week after that will be the G.I. Joe Storm Shadow? No. Anyway, that one. Just recently released. I can't remember the character's name. It's killing me. So yes, please tune into one of those shows if you would, and we'd love to have you join us in the chats when you do. Greg, if you would give us a goodbye.
Night, everybody. Good to be back after a few weeks off and had a bunch of stuff going on and wasn't around. But it was nice to be here this evening. Had some interesting stuff going on. It was great to catch up with folks at Fan Expo Boston this weekend. We'll have the rest of the red carpet photos up shortly. All the photos. What else we got going on? Tons of stuff going on with Red Raven Studios. We've got some really fun sets going up for the Halloween season, as you might expect if you've ever seen any of our stuff. So
creepy.
If you're still on there, actually not so much creepy this year. A little more.
Oh, that chair is creepy.
Let's say pop culture-y.
Well, that too.
Well,
but that chair is creepy. Come on.
Fair enough. It's just a servo.
Well,
so yeah, if you're checking this out and you're in the greater Boston area, you're interested in some funky studio photo shoots with for this season, obviously Halloween sort of theme type stuff. We've got great sets. We'd love to talk to you. Check us out at redravenstudios.art or Facebook, Instagram. Hopefully we hear from you.
Cool. All right, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for people in the chat for commenting and chatting with us. We'll see you at an upcoming show. Please stay safe. Bye-bye.